welcome to the stage distinguished VP Gartner Research and Advisory, Thomas Bittman.
Good morning. Welcome to Gartner's 41st Infrastructure Operations and Cloud Strategies Conference. Isn't it great to be back? For the past few years, we've been stuck in two dimensions: virtual meetings in Zoom and WebEx and Teams. Of course, for me, from the waist down, it was sweatpants and shorts and flip-flops. Right? And for some of you too, right? That's how you do it. But it feels really good to be meeting again in person in three dimensions. Thank you for joining us here and taking time out of your busy schedule to be with us in Las Vegas this week. It's hard to believe, but it's been 1,093 days since we were last on this stage. And if you were here with us in December of 2019, maybe you remember the closing predictions from the end of that keynote. Embrace disruption. Yeah, unfortunately, we nailed that. The COVID pandemic changed the rules, how we do business, how we do IT. And from our conversations with clients around the world, in every geography and every industry, I'll tell you what we saw. Infrastructure and operations leaders, I&O leaders, absolutely stepped up to the challenge. You have changed the world. But our work is never over, and yesterday's heroics are now today's expectations. We seem to have no choice but to keep embracing disruption, as our organizations are simultaneously facing a triple squeeze of concerns from the outside world. Year over year, inflation is crazy high. 90% of the CEOs that we surveyed expect that it's going to be around for a while. Adding to that challenge, the talent that we need to find, that we need in our enterprise is hard to find, and it's getting harder to keep. And supply chain bottlenecks are just clogging up the world, meaning everyone is having a hard time getting inventory on the shelves. And that includes the servers and the spare parts for those servers in your data centers. Suffice it to say, no one has faced all of these challenges all at once. So the last time inflation levels were this high, and I'm really curious how many people nod their heads. The last time inflation levels were this high, Liberace was headlining on the Vegas Strip. Now, some of you may not even know who that is because you're young, and good for you, but this was more than 40 years ago. It's crazy. These concurrent pressures and challenges are just really putting a strain on us. So in order to tackle them, our organizations need people who are well-versed in reducing costs year after year after year. People who can turn a disorganized mess into a smoothly running, repeatable process. People who can keep things running no matter what. Gosh, if there was only some kind of lab where we could cultivate and hone these kind of skills. That's right, there is one. It's called the data center. The skills we've built in the data center over the decades are exactly what our organizations need right now. We know how to keep things running. We know how to reduce costs. We've got the skills we need to face these challenges. But now, it's up to us in I&O to help lead our organizations forward into a future where our business acumen enables I&O to mesh well with our business units. A future where platform engineering and intelligent automation put tailored solutions in every employee's hands. A future where I&O teams not only have the skills they need, but they expand their horizons and grow to meet future needs. And a future where we are the center of innovation in our organizations. Now, that might sound like a tall order, but that's what this week is all about. So in the next 40 minutes, Roger, Dennis, and I will start to show you how.
Tom is right. We have to move I&O forward. How do we do that, though, when it feels like so much is holding us back? Well, we need more power, obviously. That power comes from strong connections to others outside of IT that can advocate for us. They will do so because they need our help to keep up the pace of digital adoption. Gartner research shows that 88% of CEOs are maintaining or accelerating their digital pace. The triple squeeze is not slowing them down. This requires more than our technical skills. We need business acumen. And the best way to get it is by actively immersing ourselves in our organization. Now, I know you've heard this before, yet I still see clients hesitating to reach out. Hey, I get it. I spent a lot of years at tech support, and anyone that knew me back then could tell you more conversation was often the last thing I wanted. It's easy to make excuses and avoid this, isn't it? You know the ones. They have no idea who I am. Or, what would we even talk about? And my favorite, they'll only complain. If you agree with that one, though, you're probably right. We found in a recent survey that 47% of employees experience high digital friction. For instance, maybe Karen is struggling with a confusing process, or Doug's having laptop issues again. Who wants to hear complaints about all that? Well, successful infrastructure and operations leaders do. After all, there is a lot of opportunity here for those of us willing to be bold and ask people, what technology issues are getting in your way? We want Karen and Doug to know that we care about them and that they are not alone. An empathetic ear beats hold music any day. When we remove digital friction, we'll gain advocates fast. Beyond digital friction, we also need to better understand how technology is being used and not used across the organization. For example, what's happening on the car production line or in the hospital's oncology wing? Here's a way to understand where we can make a difference. Remember the notion of 20% time that Google popularized? Well, here is a challenge for you. Have every member of your I&O leadership team spend 20% of a standard work week, 8 hours, immersed in business challenges. Not project status meetings, but real work being done. Now, I can see your faces. I know you don't have 8 hours free next week to start this. So instead, start blocking time now on your 2023 calendars for immersion. Others do it, and you can too. And yes, you'll have to delegate some things and stop doing some other work entirely. The benefits, though, are worth it, because you'll find ways to make a big impact you never would have found otherwise. And it'll also make it easier to communicate your value in ways that others understand. You know, think of it like being on an airplane. For most of us, seeing all the cockpit dials wouldn't be that helpful. We'd instead just like a clean, simple map that helps us answer our main question. We're going to make it home in time for dinner. Those outside of IT want the same thing from us. We must connect the I&O dials to technology outcomes to business impact. Specifically, connect I&O results to how they impact revenue and value, cost efficiency, and risk mitigation. Or to simplify, executives care about making money, saving money, and protecting money. Exactly how we talk about these aspects, though, differs in every organization. So one of the benefits of our 20% manager time is that we'll know what these mean for our organization. We'll be able to speak the language of those we work with. After all, this is their dialect. Compare that to our dialect of availability, mean time to restore service, project on time delivery, and such. You know, as someone who spent 20 years working in retail, I can tell you firsthand how little store managers and merchandisers care about internal I&O metrics. Talk about a bunch of cockpit dials. When we instead talk about how our work impacts their priorities, people will pay attention. You know, in fact, there is one particular group of people that will pay close attention, a group we call business technologists. These are the folks outside of IT that are modifying analytics, customizing processes, and configuring solutions. That's right. They aren't just creating reports. They are creating software. Just what every person in this room was hoping for, more developers. Okay, clearly many of you are not excited about more developers, but your CEO probably is. Here's a Gartner stat that will grab your attention. 67% of CEOs surveyed stated that they want more technology work done directly in business units. 2 out of every 3 CEOs want this. That's one of the reasons why we recently found that business technologists make up 41% of non-IT employees. We even see that demand for some technology skills is growing faster outside of IT than inside of IT. On one of Gartner's hype cycles, where we track adoption trends, you can see that business technologists are near the peak of inflated expectations. There's a lot of interest in this topic by our clients. All these trends point to one conclusion. There will be more and more business technologists embedded throughout your organization. Now, I can see some of you wincing a bit. After all, the specter of shadow IT has scarred many of us. We know what happens when people can't find the tools they need and don't understand all the ways technology can go wrong. Here's a hint, bad things happen. Customer car orders get deleted. Patient life support systems go offline. The mission fails. Dennis will talk more in a bit about how platform engineering can help us avoid these situations. But for now, just remember this. Engage with business technologists. Remove friction that gets in their way. Treat them as an extension of your organization, and you'll both benefit. Now, I don't just mean that figuratively, but literally, as fusion teams are becoming more common. Fusion teams are where business technologists and IT staff come together. They share accountability for outcomes with combined business and technology domain expertise. Fusion teams extend the capacity and bandwidth of IT to enable digital success. The prevalence of fusion teams is evidence that the boundaries between IT and business areas blurring. A helpful example of this trend comes from our recent case study of Ohio Health. You see, Ohio Health's patients were suffering as they were staying in the hospital longer than needed due to staff shortages and capacity issues. Everybody wanted to fix this, which is great, but it led to more than 50 separate initiatives across 13 Ohio hospitals, all going at once. Of course, the intent was good, but as you might expect, it led to conflict, as many of these initiatives overlap in scope and competed for the same resources. To address this, Ohio Health consolidated these initiatives into a single enterprise-wide effort. They staffed a fusion team with I&O, clinical, and operational staff to lead this effort. The team created a single view of the patient's acute care journey and developed an organization-wide system capacity and resource center. Results were great. A 50% reduction in the number of patients exceeding the mean length of stay. After all, who wants to stay in the hospital longer than they have to? They also improved visibility into patient throughput and capacity by developing 17 role-specific dashboards. That's useful, but what really blew my mind is that they decommissioned 77 legacy dashboards. Any of you that's ever tried to pry a report out of an executive's hands knows how hard that is. The lesson from Ohio Health is clear. Use fusion teams to address organizational issues. Support them with key staff and help them understand I&O strengths. But most of all, treat them as technology equals, crucial to your success. Because they are. To recap, immersing ourselves in our organization's fabric is how we start moving I&O forward. Fusion teams and business technologists are vital in this effort. Engage them, support them, and harness them to expand I&O impact. Use 20% manager time for outreach. Embed I&O leaders in business activities to identify pain points and act on enterprise opportunities. Let me sum it up for you. Reduce digital friction. to increase I&O power. Dennis?
Yeah, thank you, Roger. That's great. But how can we remove that friction by making time to immerse ourselves in business problems when we feel that we're drowning in our own problems? To make space for this work, it's vital that we accelerate the adoption of automation and platform engineering to move I&O forward. So let's talk about how we make that happen. So a good starting point is to assess our current state. IT Score for I&O, for example, is a self-assessment tool that looks at how you manage I&O. The result is a heat map showing your strengths and weaknesses with actionable advice on how to resolve areas of concern. However you address this, the key is to take an objective view of your capabilities and to actively prioritize those elements to make the biggest impact in an increasingly complex world. And this is where adopting a platform engineering approach is vital. Platform engineering is an early stage technology that's all about creating layers of components and services that enables anyone to develop solutions quickly and safely. And it's attracting huge interest. In fact, at this conference, we have an entire platform engineering track. So I highly recommend that you tap into it. Let me introduce the concept. When we talk about platform engineering, what do we mean? Well, these platforms are ideally composed of software-defined, API-driven, loosely coupled architectures. This allows multiple teams to make updates to components at the same time. It also enables independent deployment and scaling and provides a greater flexibility and ease of collaboration. And all product teams use these multi-tenant platforms via self-service portal, where they can select and automatically provision infrastructure as needed. Benefits are multifold in that we minimize waste, we reduce security risk, and we also ease integration. The focus on platform engineering also fits with the trend towards low and no code development, where this provides developers a way to create applications without being experts in coding. Gartner predicts that by 2015, 70% of new applications will be developed with low-code and no-code approaches, up from less than 25% today. So I&O needs to work with business technologists to determine key product and infrastructure needs for low-code application development. The platform team then builds a tailored offering from commoditized components, such as multi-cloud environments, which can be automatically provisioned to provide exactly what is needed to order with minimal complexity. Let's take a look at how this works. Let's take a look at Dutch financial services firm, ABN AMRO. ABN AMRO faced a number of challenges that probably most of you are facing. Rapid regulatory change, industry complexities, right? Difficulties in securing their technology stack. Developers wanted to move faster, but senior leaders didn't want to compromise on reliability and compliance. Sound familiar? The first step they took was to understand the consumption patterns. The I&O team reviewed logs, tickets, and surveys of existing technologies. This highlighted key dependencies and made clear that the I&O technology silos were great at developing standards and driving internal efficiencies, but not so great for developers who had to work with a bunch of I&O teams to get anything done. This led to step 2, using self-service to reduce I&O platform complexity for developers. Each end-to-end platform includes built-in security, code scanning tools, and other functionality that developers want. It also provides access to new I&O offerings based on emerging technologies and the training for how they can use it. Of course, just meeting the needs of today isn't enough. So step 3 for ABN AMRO was to ensure that the platform could be adapted going forward. For instance, the network was shifted to software-defined architectures and use of APIs. This made the network services self-contained and allowed for quicker updates. ABM is fairly advanced in some ways, yet there are important lessons for us all, regardless of where we are within our journey. People want easy-to-consume offerings that allow them to get what they want and avoid what they don't want. So we must continue to manage all of the assets and processes we need, yet present our work in terms of business benefits. Platform engineering is how we take the best of multi-cloud operations and commoditize infrastructure and tailor them to provide value to every business stakeholder. And that leads to the next I&O Forward evolution, using automation to change how we work. Intelligent automation is an essential part of I&O Forward. After all, what better way to free up 8 hours for business immersion than by making routine, time-consuming tasks to go away? And I don't need to tell you that automation enables speed to market, but it also increases business agility. It mitigates risk, and it optimizes service costs. But you may not know where to start. Well, not to worry. We have new data on what mature organizations are doing that other organizations are not. So let's take a look at what we found. For common automation activities, mature organizations are twice as likely to invest in service desk automation. They're also more likely to invest in repeated tasks, such as patch deployment and new infrastructure configuration. And when we took it further and looked at differentiating automation activities, problem detection using KPIs stands out as an area where mature I&O teams are investing. And do note, they're also orchestrating this into service delivery rather than just using disconnected automation tasks. It's clear that if you can move beyond one-off automation activities and strategies in 2025, you're going to be way ahead of the pack. If you want to get the most from intelligent automation, it needs to do more than just enable I&O. To move I&O forward, embrace platform engineering and intelligent automation. Use platform engineering to create common, shareable tools to help developers, fusion teams, and business technologists to do their job better. And at the same time, adopt intelligent automation to reduce routine tasks, increase efficiencies, and give all users a better digital experience. In other words, stop focusing on tools and start building engines. So Tom, back to you.
Well, Dennis, I'd love to build an engine, but what if I'm not sure I have the right skills and the right mechanics for the job? To build the right platforms, to start immersing ourselves in the business, we absolutely must have the right skill sets on board. It's the only way we can hope to move our organizations forward. And that means developing the right skills in the workforce, empowering them to achieve their maximum potential, and then putting them in the right spots at the right time. We've all heard the sentiment that people are our greatest asset. It's a phrase used too much because talk is cheap. At the end of the day, action is the only thing that matters. It's the only thing that really makes a difference and moves us forward. And we absolutely need to take action because the pandemic has dramatically changed how we work. Gartner's HR research predicts that in the future, employee turnover will be 20% higher than pre-pandemic levels. 20% higher. Remember what I said back at the beginning of the session about the triple squeeze and how no one in this room has faced all these challenges all at once? This is one of those reasons. If we fail as leaders to create an environment in I&O where we foster our talent and support our talent in this labor market, our talent's going to find somewhere else that does. So we need to get better at assessing the skills we have in-house versus what we anticipate we're going to need in the future in the context of this current labor market dynamic. Now, you didn't think you'd get through a whole Gartner session without a quadrant, right? Stagnant skills are typically in decline, so we shouldn't be investing much in those anymore. But more importantly, we have to make a very, very conscious effort not to let our talent get stuck only working on those. That's a recipe for creating unnecessary turnover. Critical needs and niche skills, these are really more cutting edge, and this is where we really need to improve our skills investment portfolio. For example, artificial intelligence and infrastructure as code are opportunities for I&O to shine. But as Dennis mentioned just a moment ago, how much are we truly investing in automation? AI Ops and Edge are emerging technologies that may have niche use cases today, but once again, I&O can play a critical role in their development and rollout. Every single one of us in this room should be considering our skills against an exercise like this one. Because IT evolves so fast that our skills have an expiration date. So let me see. You, right out there, your Novell NetWare skills from the 90s, zero market value in 2022. IT is a career path where we have to reinvent ourselves constantly. The good news is there's never a lack for work, and it's actually really exciting work. But we have to be very conscious to avoid the trap of letting ourselves or our people get pushed down to that lower left quadrant. So we absolutely need to keep investing in technical skills, but going forward, softer skills in business and collaboration are really going to increase in importance. Remember what Roger said earlier about fusion teams, about how we must start immersing ourselves further out into the organization. We have to invest to make sure our people have the skills to be able to do that effectively. Just as a thought exercise, ask yourselves, how many hours of non-technical training have you taken in the last 3 years during the pandemic? Or if you're a manager, how many hours did you expect your team members to complete? Right? It's okay, you're not alone, because if you're like most of the organizations we speak with, the answer is not many. And while having both technical and soft skills is going to be important in the years ahead, being able to use those skills efficiently is going to be equally important. You heard Roger discussing earlier digital friction that we see within organizations. Well, that happens in IT too. Friction creates sparks, and not the good kind. Over time, friction will grind down even the most resilient gears and machines. And for people, that means degraded performance and demoralized staff. And if that friction gets really bad, in this day and age, people tweet, they post on Glassdoor, word gets around. This can make your organization's staffing challenges even worse than they already were. So we should be leveraging digital employee experience strategies to use artificial intelligence to create near real-time actionable insights on ways we can improve employee effectiveness. We should be doing this for all of our employees. But according to Gartner research, and hear this, according to Gartner research, only 15% of IT organizations are. The good news is it's growing to about 50% by 2025. And we should leverage these techniques for optimizing our I&O employees as well. For example, we should be open to flexible and hybrid work styles that make I&O staff more productive. We should let our employees use open source and freemium tools that augment their supported tool sets and help them do their job. These can go a long way toward maximizing our valuable, highly skilled employees in I&O, making them as efficient as possible. Now, if we can address skilling, and once we've started to work on removing friction, we need to start thinking about placement. Where do we put our people? Traditional workforce management strategies say, rather simply, we put them in places aligned with their skills. Square boxes. Same thing we've done for decades. It's pretty straightforward, right? Except it doesn't work so well anymore. especially in a dynamic field like IT. In the face of global change in practically every vertical industry, traditional workforce planning methods are really struggling to keep up. The practice of dynamic work management shifts our habit from focusing on the workforce to focusing on the work to be done. Keeping talent means giving them new opportunities and new positions that take away some of the boredom and burnout they might have, gives them new things that they can do. Unfortunately, and this is another stat that's really sad, only 27% of employees agree that their organization makes finding job opportunities that suit their interests easy for them. So dynamic work management encompasses an entire spectrum of ideas from role creation to role configuration to deliberate internal job rotation for team members. It even includes really innovative and disruptive models like task self-selection, where employees get to potentially choose what they're working on. It's pretty cool. This is not just labor market theory, though. Gartner is speaking with HR departments around the world that are doing this today in their businesses. And in some cases, that includes IT as well. Here's an example of task self-selection. Tetra Pak built a process where every 18 months they reassess their products in the market. They figure out what sizes of teams are needed for the various products and capabilities. And then product leaders prepare 2 to 5 minute video pitches to their staff members where they can come in, asking them to come and join their teams, highlighting the new skills that they'll gain from this and the value it would provide to the organization. Then employees apply for the projects they would like to work on. As an I&O professional, doesn't this actually sound kind of cool? It worked for them. Within 3 years, nearly 1/3 of the I&O team had transitioned to work outside of their core skill area. It's radical thinking like that which will move our organizations forward through workforce reskilling and optimization and dynamic work management. So let's not just talk about how employees are our greatest asset. Let's take action and make it true. Dennis?
Thank you, Tom. All right, everyone. Now we're integrated with the business. We're more efficient thanks to automation and platform engineering. And we have the right workforce. But what do we do now to look ahead to the next big thing? Well, as I&O forward leaders, we must help our organizations to navigate through a vast landscape of emerging technologies. This could be very cutting-edge technologies, such as quantum computing, artificial intelligence, robotics, digital twins, or more practical evolutions of existing technologies, such as zero trust network access, distributed cloud, cloud-native infrastructure. Well, though it sounds easy, it's tremendously difficult to navigate through all of these different technologies. Look at the sheer number of potentially valuable technologies emerging now. Right? It's a lot of dots, and they all look like they're all coming at us. So how do you filter out the bad fits and impractical options and focus in on the technologies that solve problems for our organizations? Well, we build an innovation engine. Whether you already have an innovation lab or not, think of an innovation engine as the next step. It's a mechanism that draws in new technologies, tests and evaluates them, and then generates the best candidates for going further and having further development with. This engine, therefore, must have well-defined inputs, processes, and outputs. So let's take apart the engine, starting with the inputs. Inputs are the intake, pumping innovation ideas into our engine. And they come from multiple sources. First, we get inputs from our business, as Roger mentioned. We know our colleagues' pain points and their needs. Knowing their needs, we can turn to research from sources such as Gartner to learn more about technology candidates. Another valuable input is from peers within our industry. This can come from conferences like this. And finally, articles in mainstream and social media that might be circulating around building hype for a particular technology. So let's see how this process might work with a real-world innovation trend, sustainability. For the first time ever in Gartner research, sustainability and the environment are now a top 10 trend for CEOs. And there's no shortage of technology associated with sustainability. But how do you evaluate all of them? Well, in fact, you don't. You funnel these ideas into the innovation engine. And as with all engines, performance depends on design. So what is the best design for our innovation engine? Well, to find out, Gartner recently interviewed 20 innovation lab leaders across various industries. From that, we found 5 distinct patterns that significantly improves the chances of innovation lab success. First was the presence of a visionary, strategic CEO. Now, if you don't have that today, you aren't going to be able to swap out your CIO like a failed hard drive. But the point is, successful innovation labs must have senior executive buy-in. Next up is to identify skills on your innovation lab team, including business technologists. Successful labs are powered by people with technical knowledge, for example, skills in infrastructure, programming, and yes, business acumen. We also need quantifiable outcomes. Gartner's recent Tech Innovation Survey revealed that organizations using business metrics to track their innovation lab performance are more likely to outperform competitors. Process is a key factor. We also find that the most successful innovation labs extensively scope and validate their ideas before proceeding, using techniques such as design thinking, customer journey mapping, and hackathons. And finally, you do not have to do all this in isolation. To reduce the risk of failure, find industry and academic partners that can supply missing skills and technical expertise. So if you're looking around your innovation lab and you only see your own I&O team, you're probably doing it wrong. Innovation engines can be powerful, and a great example can be found in Repsol, a Spanish energy and petrochemical company. It launched an ambitious digital transformation initiative to lower operating costs and to meet its sustainability goals. First, Repsol's CIO redesigned the company's operating model and gave business leaders control over their own digital initiatives. A digital innovation group was formed outside of the traditional IT department to help the business unit leaders define their strategy and also to test technologies. Business units then set up their own fusion teams, combining subject matter experts, IT, and innovation team resources. And next, the CIO set up an innovation lab fund to invest in promising technologies that business units found were just too risky. This prevented good ideas from being discarded because of the fear of not panning out. And yes, the results have been impressive. The financial impact from Repsol's digital transformation initiative totaled more than $500 million in 2021, encouraging the company to raise its targeted impact to $800 million in 2022. So for companies like Repsol, we see that innovation engines can give us that crucial go, no-go technology evaluation. Let's face it, it's likely a lot of the technologies will be no-goes, either because they aren't the right fit or they would be too costly or complicated to implement. Other technologies may be promising, but maybe just not right now for us, right? Given a lack of availability or maybe ecosystem immaturity. And then there's the Goldilocks technology. It's just right. It's mature. The economics work. It solves a painful and costly problem, and it aligns with our overall objectives. The I&O Forward innovation engine we install here will help us to weed out the hits from the misses. So the result may be just the 2 out of 10 ideas, or even 2 out of 100, right, pass out of the innovation engine. But that's a good thing. It indicates that we've built a well-functioning engine geared toward business innovation rather than just being a playground for cool-to-have IT toys. With this design, we're ensuring that our innovation engine can run efficiently and sustainably and more quickly move winning technologies to adoption. So our innovation engine is the final piece to move I&O forward. Using a well-thought-out design that combines leadership, personnel, quantifiable outcomes, processes, and partnerships, our innovation engine can find, test, and bring forward the best new technologies that fit our organizational needs. Design matters. Build your innovation engine right, and it will certainly drive I&O forward.
It definitely will, Dennis. Let's be blunt. We can't go back to the 1970s, 2019, or any other time we might think of as the good old days. Disruption continues to be the order of the day. So instead, I&O must move forward. Here's the blueprint for how to do that. Build strong connections with fusion teams and business technologists to better understand their needs and where I&O can help. Immerse yourself into the organization's fabric by employing 20% manager time for outreach.
And accelerate platform engineering adoption by using software-defined, API-driven, loosely coupled architectures to create tailored platforms to drive solutions forward with built-in safety. And also make intelligent automation a central part of your I&O strategy to capitalize on emerging opportunities, take over repetitive tasks, and speed response.
And retool the I&O workforce by shifting focus from legacy skills to critical skill needs, critical technical needs, and build those business collaboration skills. Optimize employee efficiency through digital employee experience best practices, and use dynamic work management to not only define new roles, but to enable task self-selection.
And build an innovation engine. Make sure it has sponsorship, clear business goals, and the right team to evaluate the options and move the most promising technologies forward.
Take a photo of this so you can reference it later. Some of these may be areas you're already well on the road to having in place. Others may be new, or areas where results have not been so great. Remember, your organization needs your skills and talents more than ever. When you take these steps to move I&O forward, you're not just moving I&O. You're moving your entire organization. The momentum you build will change I&O, change your organization, and change the world. Thank you for joining us. Now, forward I&O, forward.
Thank you.